All right, welcome back to All Hitches, the Nova Football Podcast, your barbershop for all things Nova Football. Episode 2, here we go, guys. And I do want to make a special announcement. We have joining us today, Carl Frederick from Prep RedZone. Carl, how you doing?
Gentlemen, what's going on? How we doing, man?
We're doing good, man. We're excited. I mean, high school football's in the air, and I think everybody on here is into it.
Yeah, this is football. We're getting on football eve. This is when it's the dog days of summer. We're getting, we're training camps a few days away. Preseason camp is coming up, and next thing you know, week 1 is here. This is a great time of the year, fellas.
It's there. We're getting there. We just got to get through this 110-degree heat right now we got going on. So today we're talking about the Concorde District. Now, we got a lot to talk about with Concorde. I think someone said earlier the SEC of the Nova football. At least that's one coach's opinion of the Concorde.
And just look how dominant some of those teams have been for certain periods of time, right? You have Westfield, who in their first 17 years won 5 state championships in football. You have Oakton, who had that run of championship football. Obviously, you have Madison, who had been has been to the state playoffs 4 years in a row. They had 2 back-to-back state title appearances. South Lakes obviously is an up-and-comer.
I gotta say, don't forget Centreville, who played on ESPN. It feels like yesterday, but probably 5 or 6 years ago.
Right.
National football games.
I just think, as far as football goes, that they are ultra competitive. They all seem to rise and fall. But I think you have a lot of whoever the top dog is in that district is usually a state title contender.
Yeah, no, that's well said. The SEC of Northern Virginia football. I've never heard that term before, but I'm going to run with it. But that's just what you guys kind of leading what I wanted to talk about here with Oakton. It makes it a tougher task for them because it's been quite some time since Oakton's had that run. It's been since 2012 since they've been in the postseason. So, Coach Slay, as guys we were talking about beforehand, he's got a tall task at hand. Head coach Brian Slay in his first year as the head coach for the Oakton Cougars. They're coming off a 1-9 season, and they're on a 7-game losing streak. At the end of the year, they had their one victory, as Coach Dash knows, unfortunately, at Woodson last year. Was that Woodson or was that Oakton, Coach?
It was at Woodson.
I didn't mean to bring it up.
It was a day-night doubleheader. It was the Lightning game.
Lightning game?
It was a Lightning game. We ended that game at about 11 o'clock on Saturday afternoon.
No, we don't need to bring up bad wounds.
I'll say this: that was it was a memorable one for not all the right reasons. I do want to set this up, though. I do want to set this up, and I want to say that Mr. Fredericks is here because specifically. So you just wrote an article on Oakton, right?
Yeah, that's. Yeah, as you know, I've worked for Prep RedZone Virginia's website as a scout and an evaluator, and it's the time of the season, like you guys were saying. It's kind of preseason, and I'm going team by team, and hopefully evolve Northern Virginia football into different parts of Virginia, and just giving a breakdown. And for those that don't know, Prep RedZone and their breakdown and their articles are player based, they're player evaluation. So when you see the team previews, it's going to have a breakdown of key returning starters and newcomers, but it's going to have their evaluations. It's not going to be like a schedule by schedule review. I'm going to talk to you guys about that because they got a very interesting schedule coming up in Oakton. That's what you're going to expect on the Prep RedZone Virginia website about Oakton.
Okay, that's good to know. And today, as far as how we're going to run this down, we're going to go from bottom of the 23 standings and work our way up to the top. So we are going to start with Oakton, who finished off 1-9 on the season, like we were just talking about.
Yes, 1-9. Like I said, they're on a 7-game losing streak. Coach, they got a new head coach, and Brian Slay comes over from McLean, did an excellent job there. So speaks the world of him. He had a dominant defense. He helped out with the offensive line, but he's got a tall task ahead of him, and it doesn't get easy. You guys alluded to it already. It's the SEC of Northern Virginia football. I mean, not only do they have to play South Lakes, Westfield, and Madison, I think that's all in back-to-back weeks, by the way. Towards the end of the season. But then they're Oakton's out-of-conference schedule. They have Fairfax, who's still very good. Maybe not quite what they were 2 years ago, but you guys know better than I do about Fairfax. They have them. I believe West Springfield also on the schedule. So it's you'll see it kind of. Coach alludes to it in the article too, because at the end of these Prep RedZone Virginia team previews, I have a little quote from the coach just to give his thoughts on the off season and like what to expect. And I think he said they placed out of the 10 teams they played, 7 of them were in the playoffs last year, and so it's a tall task ahead for Coach Slay and the Cougars. But I like the direction that they're going, to be honest with you.
But I do think they had a lot of young talent. Again, because we played them last year, we got to see their lower levels. And they had a freshman team that was pretty dynamic. That receiver they have, I think it was Dalen Jones that they had.
Yep, that's a good one.
Yeah, that kid was a stud. And the other thing was that's really interesting with them is that they started a sophomore quarterback last year, and then they had at the lower levels they had on every level they had kids go throw the football, which I think Oakton seems to be known to have. I think Coach Dash talks about a lot. The fact that the Vienna Youth football organization is really a really quality organization. So they seem to really get kids who can play. Now, while it seems Madison probably gets a lion's share of them, Oakton still gets quite a few of them that can really play.
And they were able to do that last year. If you look at the roster and guys that they either lost or don't have this year, unfortunately, but they lost a bunch of quarterbacks and they still had a stable of quarterbacks. Right. They lost one quarterback in a transfer to Madison. They lost another kid who I guess he moved, talking to the coaches, and they were still able to kind of replenish it with a couple of young kids. Now, they did have a kid move in at the end of last year, or he got hurt, or he was hurt in the offseason, and he kind of started, I think, the last 2 games. I think the name was Badini.
Badini, I was going to ask you guys about him.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so like in these articles, so like the coach will give me like key returning players, and he gave me a good list of names, including Preston Schwartz, who, like what Coach was saying about the receiver talent there. He's one that, is going to pop out this year. He's a key returning starter. But Badani, like his tape is good, but there's not much of it. And I was wondering, like, don't they have a younger quarterback? That was kind of be one of my questions. It's like, I like some of the talent they have coming in, but what's the quarterback situation going on at Oakton right now?
Like I said before, the kid they started last year was a sophomore. Samar.
Right.
Samar.
Okay. Call, right? Samar Call.
Yeah. Right. And then they, like I said, they had a freshman quarterback because when we saw them play, obviously with that receiver who was really dynamic. The quarterback they had looked like he could develop into something as well. They had a really dynamic offense on that freshman team last year, and then their JV team same thing. They had some kids who could spin it. So I think that a stable quarterbacks, in when we got a chance to kind of look at and sent out our stuff to Coach Slay, I don't know if he's rather guarded about that. My guess is because of the young quarterbacks, he's probably going to have a pretty big quarterback competition.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, I like both of them, to be honest with you. And I like the set of receivers they have coming back. Like Dalen Jones, you mentioned him first. Yeah, he was actually in this article I have. He's one of the kids I have key newcomers. I've watched this tape before. He looks like he's varsity ready.
Oh, he was a stud.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's 6'2", 185 pounds. Yeah, a soon-to-be sophomore, and he's not done growing. This kid looks ready to go.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I really like their freshman talent. I remember even before speaking with Coach Slay, like looking at the freshman group and thinking if they could stick together, they may have something here.
Yeah. Well, and I think another big question for Oakton is what are they going to run, right? Obviously, the offense is going to change, the defense is going to change. So it's going to be really interesting on what Coach Slay plans on doing with this with this talent he has at Oakton.
Yeah, because I was going to say now, correct me if I'm wrong, Coach Slay, he has a background. Did he come from Stonebridge?
Yeah, he played at Stonebridge, but he was just most recently coaching at McLean, and he really helped get them going, I believe. And especially, I know I don't believe he was the defensive coordinator last year. I think he was their offensive line coach, but he has a really good reputation. He comes over highly recommended, and again, he's going into a situation where, I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, this is a team that hasn't made the playoffs since 2012. That's not like he has a high bar to live up to, but he hit the ground running.
Yeah. I mean, with all the sophomores, he's got some interesting decisions to make, and that the quarterback position is definitely one of them, right? Do you go senior? Do you go with the talented sophomore? Whatever quarterback he goes with, though, I think we're all going to agree on this one. losing, was it Toole? Was it Nick Toole?
Oh, the baseball player too, right?
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, he was out. They would just throw balls up to him last year, and he would just go up and get them.
Yeah, he was pretty talented.
That center, David Jansen, too, where he graduated. I liked him up front. I remember looking at his tape, but they lost. But it was a 1-9 team. On a 7-game losing streak. They got a good opportunity out of the gate with a very winnable game against Langley. I think if a few ball bounce the right way for Coach Slay, I could see them maybe being close. And I wrote this in the article too, like being a 500 team. But I think the future is very bright at Oakton.
Oh yeah,
I agree.
And some of the players that he kind of mentioned to us, and he wanted us to highlight. Carson McCullough, big senior tight end, 6'1", 180 pounds. Keegan Murphy was another one he mentioned.
Keegan Murphy was honorable mention all Concorde District a year ago. He's a tough lineman. He can play tackle. He can play guard. I think he's going to play at the next level at guard. He's 6'3", 235 pounds. Yeah, I really like his tape, and I like the way he played against, especially the Madison game where you guys know Madison's been one of the best teams in Class 6 these last couple of years, and he really held his own and competed. I like some of these kids he got coming back, like Preston Swartz, man. He's a tough receiver that I watched him make plays against Fairfax and Madison. He's a tough kid. It's not like they were backing down a lot of these games. It's not like they were getting blown out either. They're a tough team.
And at 6'1", 170 pounds, Schwartz, that's good size. Another kid named Ryan Henriquez. Running back, kind of a scat back.
They got a nice young lineman too who played a lot last year in Wesley. I believe Lattice. He's about 6'4", 245 pounds. He lettered last year. He's going to be a junior. He's a kid that you could tell he's still growing into his body, but holding up against good competition last year, he held up well.
Yeah, that's an impressive size. I'll tell you what. Just looking across the board, all those guys that were mentioned, and those are all big guys. Another kid, Justin Rankin, only a 10th grader, 250 pounds, 6 foot.
Oh yeah, okay. He mentioned him in the email too. I was trying to find his kid's tape. They're like a lot of times when these coaches send me like guys they want to write about, and I go to their huddle. The kid doesn't have a huddle tape. There's a lot of kids do a great job. Like this Keegan Murphy kid, he posts a huddle tape, but it's of like one game that he played really well. I love stuff like that. He has a cut up of like his highlights against Madison, I believe. That's smart. Like that's what scouts colleges are looking at. They're not like Coach just said. Any kid could put up an hour-long tape of all their plays, but they want to see how so and so matching up against these guys from Madison. How's this so and so matching up against these guys from Freedom? They want to see stuff like that. I love when kids do that, but it's more the latter.
Not to get too much off topic, but some of the best recruiting coordinators I've ever worked with at high schools have said your highlight film should be about a minute and a half at longest. And they should always be your most explosive plays. Making a tackle for a gain of 2 is not something. It needs to either be on offense. It needs to be long plays. Running somebody over for a 5-yard gain is not a hype. I talk to players. I tell them all the time. It needs to be short. They need to be big plays. Big explosive plays either side of the football. So.
All right, so we're all kind of bullish on Oakton. We all like their young talent. We're at the end of this. We're going to actually do rankings, but I'm going to let you just talk about Oakton there, Carl. What do you think you're looking at record wise at the end of the year? Make a prediction for Oakton.
I'm going to go 3-7. I know that doesn't sound great, but I think it's a good building block. Coach Slay, he's in the building. He seems like he has Cougars buying in. So 3-7 may sound like a slight. It's not. I think the future is bright. I think they're going to be a competitive 3-7. I'm going to say that.
It's not a slight. I agree with you 100%. It's up and coming with an arrow going up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's time to get Oakton back in the playoffs. They're one of the highest enrollment, biggest schools enrollment-wise in Class 6. They got to get Oakton football back, man.
Yeah, we agree. So, Carl, out there for anybody who's listening. How can they get a hold of you? Anything you want to promote for you sign off with us?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Yeah, and thanks again. This is really cool what you guys are doing, full disclosure. And thanks. I really appreciate you having me on. I can't wait to come back on for more previews and as the season gets going. But the best way to find me is, I'm always promoting my articles on Twitter. My Twitter handle is at Carl CarlJFred, Carl J. Fred. I'll be posting an article again tomorrow morning on Prep RedZone Virginia. You can go to that right to the direct website. It's in my Twitter handle. And if anybody wants to be a subscriber for Prep RedZone, feel free to use my discount code, 30% off, Frederick 30. That's, I'm allowed to use that code. I talked to the Prep RedZone bosses. They want subscribers. That I'm allowed to use the code, but that's the best way is get me is at Carl J. Fred on Twitter. Check out the Prep RedZone Virginia website. I'm going to have team previews with player evaluations and hopefully all of Northern Virginia football in different parts of Virginia. And my coworker, Mr. Cole Lang, he's going to be covering more Southern Virginia football for Prep RedZone Virginia. But yeah, look for that. Should be having articles posted hopefully up until week 1.
All right, that's awesome, Carl. We appreciate you coming on today, and this is just the first time we're going to have you on a lot more.
All right, guys. I can't wait. And thank you so much for your patience. Sorry for my work computer snafu earlier, but thanks for letting me be your guest, and best of luck with everything. I can't wait to see how it all turns out.
Thanks, Carl.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have you on again, man. Have a good one.
All right, Coach. Take care.
All right. Well, that was good. Some good Oakton insider info there with Carl, and we're going to go right down the line here and hit up the next school again in last year's order, standings order, 2-8 Centreville.
Yeah, I know this was a kind of a come back down to earth moment for Centreville. A very very un-Centreville like season for them last year. They started a lot of young kids. I mean, you look at last year being very senior heavy. This year, not nearly as much senior heavy.
Right.
And again, I think kind of the same thing with Oakton. The Concorde District is not something you can get away with trying to get kids to learn early. So I think the sophomore quarterback, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Coach Shields, the veteran now, the gray beard of that conference, and his son is the quarterback, rising junior.
Yeah. Yeah. Again. Being really young.
The one thing that I'm going to say that does worry me a little bit about them, and it's a young team, and without knowing what kind of key injuries happened at the end of last year, whatever. You and I were talking about this, before we got on the show, and you'll go over the scores here in a second. There were some losses at the end of last year that kind of worried me a little bit. So
yeah. So last year they started off with the win against AC, 28-3. And then a really tough loss to a really good West Potomac team, 35-32. So it was kind of one of those things where you're like, West Potomac's pretty good. Looks like the young kids from Centreville have gone. And then they had a bunch of really tough losses. Now in the middle of there, they played Yorktown really tough.
Okay.
28-21, a Yorktown team who got to the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I think that's something you can expect with a Centreville football team. Coach Shields is really good coach. Programs really solid program. So I think you would expect them even in a strong year to be able to still kind of put up those fights as well.
Yeah, and if you look at, I guess to my point a few minutes ago, there were some tough losses there, but in their defense, South Lakes was having a all-time season. Right. So that was a great South Lakes team. Madison, we know what they did. They ended up going to the state semis again. So, I think a lot of teams this year are losing those games, right?
Right, especially with the young talent that they were playing with. Now, that being said, going into this season, based on the coaches we've talked to, people are really up on Centreville this year. It seems that they're really high on the talent they have. It seems like they think they're probably going to turn the corner. And again, because they are Centreville, right? Centreville, perennially pretty good. Again, Coach Shields' program, very, very good program they run over there. So the expectation is, they went through some growing pains, but it seems like quite a few teams, quite a few coaches that we have spoken to have been really high and think that last year was an anomaly more than anything else.
Knowing that there was such a young team, right? If the Centreville, you're right, that week 2 almost win, and they actually did almost win that game because I was watching the highlights of that against West Potomac. Against a good West Potomac team. If the Centreville from that West Potomac team, that game, the Centreville from the Yorktown loss, if that's the team that that builds and shows up and they get better off that is a team to reckon with this year. I agree with you.
Right. Looking at last year though, they are losing all purpose wise. Their top and all purpose though is returning. Their leading receivers coming back along with.
I mean, they were young.
Yeah.
They were young.
Now they are losing their leading rusher, but the fact that most of the receivers are all coming back with sophomore quarterback, young receivers.
Yep.
Coming back, the expectation is that the next year they should be better. And so the close games they lost, right? So if you say that's two if they lost, let's say turn on the windows, now looking at 3-7. And then depending on what the other and the other thing with the conference, I think we'll get into more, is you have a lot of teams in the conference that you don't know where they're going to end up at.
Yeah.
Because there seems to be some transition with the teams, from about after Westfield and Madison, who seem to be returning quite a few kids. The other teams are kind of all in flux. So I do think that they do absolutely have a chance to make a jump this year and make some noise in the conference.
And you and I spoke about this last episode, talking about youth programs in Centreville. I mean, a lot like Vienna, they reload, right? They have a ton of talent out there. I know they got it's Westfield, it's Chantilly, it's Centreville, so they're kind of sharing some of that with other high schools. But they get a lot of talent out there.
No, I agree. They get a lot, and again, good program, solid coaching. Yep. There is no. I think there's reason to be high on Centreville this year, just like Carl is high on, and I think we're both high on what Oakton's doing. I think Centreville, there's no reason to think that they're not going to really kind of make some strides this year.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, let's go right up to the next squad here. Chantilly, a team that we know pretty well from last year, at least. We saw them in week 2, week 3?
Week 2. They started a sophomore quarterback last year.
Chantilly, sophomore quarterback or rising junior quarterback now, Sahir Mantri.
Yeah, and I've seen him going to a lot of the camps this year. It seems like there are just based on kind of we've seen on social media, there seems to be some buzz around him.
Yeah.
There hasn't been any kind of announcement yet, but it seems like there is some buzz around him. And he started as a sophomore quarterback for a reason, because you expect him for the next few years to kind of help carry your program. Now they're losing their top rusher. The running back they had last year was really good.
Chow.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal.
He was a really good, tough runner, and I think it's going to be tough to replace him. And
a really good lineman, Camp.
Yeah. So they're losing a couple of players, but I do think that returning that quarterback, because again the expectation is that they're going to know that there's going to be some pressure on him, right, to kind of perform, because you throw him in there as a sophomore, because you're like, okay, for the next 2 years we're going to need you to go, right? We don't want to get your feet wet as a junior. We want to get your feet wet as a sophomore, so you can go. Kid's pretty talented. He can throw the ball. He can throw the ball pretty well.
Yeah, he's athletic, can move.
Yeah, good athlete.
And Coach Curry, again, another veteran coach. That's what you're going to see out there. And outside of Coach Slay, a lot of veteran coaches.
Right. And it's obviously he has a plan, right? I mean, my guess is this year probably that with the quarterback. Now, while Mantry, he had about 155 yards rushing. I'm curious if they're going to use him more in the run game this year. With them losing their top 2 runners and him being the third one on there, I'm curious what they're going to do. Now, that being said, because we have a little inside information because we played against them, they had a really good freshman running back. I'm not sure of his name, but they had a really good freshman running back that looked like he was going to be pretty talented. Now, looks like he's going to do pretty well this year. He might step in the role, because they've shown, right, that they would put a quarterback, a sophomore up there to try to get them ready to go. And especially with a junior quarterback, if you put the sophomore in there, then the next year you have a senior junior combination in the backfield that can be pretty dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, Chantilly, tough team. I know the end of the season last year, looking at some of their games, Herndon, who looked pretty solid. They played Herndon really tough. They scored 37 points on Centreville, beat them. That's a huge rivalry. Right. And then I know they had the loss to Westfield, and then the Oakton game that they beat Oakton. So they ended off pretty strong. It'll be really interesting to see if they can replace Chow, and if they can replace Camp and some of the linemen that they lost. With the quarterback maturing another year, I think they can go pretty far.
Well, and I think coming out the gates is going to be really important for them. So last year they started off 2-0. Obviously they beat Falls Church and they beat us last year. They beat Woodson last year. And then with that game with McLean, now if I'm not mistaken, they end up losing that running back. I think it was number 1. I can't think of his name right now off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But they lost him, and so because they were kind of Thunder and Lightning was the combination that they had last year. So I think that really hurt them because they were kind of depending on those 2 kids in particular to try to help carry the way. Right, 2 senior running backs, sophomore quarterback, take kind of the pressure off him, but they had them going. Their first 3 games are Falls Church, Woodson, and McLean. Obviously McLean had a pretty good year. Falls Church and Woodson both struggled a little bit last year, right? They had some issues, and then they have Hayfield, and I'm sure we'll get into Hayfield on our next pod. But Hayfield's going to as if the rumors are true, it's going to be really.
That we're saving the Hayfield talk for national week. It's next pod.
Yeah, we'll be talking about them. But again, I think a good reason to feel good about being Chantilly is you start a kid as a sophomore at quarterback. The expectation is he should be his development should help to bring you along there.
Yep. No, I agree. All right, so we both like Chantilly. Westfield coming up next. This is a fun one. New coach. So one of 2 new coaches in the conference. And go ahead and talk a little bit about Coach Voss. I know you're a big Vosser fan.
I am, and it's weird, right? He's a new coach, but he's an old coach, right? So he didn't coach last year, and he came back to coach this year. The thing about and being here not for very long, but just knowing what Westfield's a pretty good football tradition, which oddly enough I think that he probably has some experience with because he went to Robinson, also a rather strong football tradition.
Oh yeah.
Watching him run his program over at Robinson, it seemed like he ran a really good program over there. He got those kids to play hard. I think he really tapped the maximum amount of talent that you get out of those kids.
Classy too, classy program.
Yeah, absolutely. His kids are respectful. His kid, and that's a credit to him, right? I mean, to be able to make sure that your kids are able to win the right way, is important. So yeah, it should be interesting what he's going to do there. I don't know if he's going to run the wing tee over there. I haven't heard anything yet. If he does. The scary thing in high school, right? You get those Westfield kids running that wing tee offense. Ooh, that's going to be something you really have to deal with.
Right. That's true. Now, a couple things about Westfield, a couple notes that I took. You mentioned taking the year off, right? Replacing a legend.
Yeah, I mean.
Now, the interesting part about replacing the legend, he's sort of done that before,
right.
At Robinson. Now, Robinson was kind of weird when he took it over. I think Coach Danny Meyer had taken the team over, and then for a year, and then Foster came in, but he still came in kind of a weird circumstance at Robinson, and he's doing that now, replacing a legend. So that's always tough to do, right? Replacing a legend.
Well, they always say you don't want to be the guy who replaces the guy. You want to be the guy who replaces the guy who replaces the guy, right? And just because again, then the expectation is high. I think we talked about Westfield. In the first 16 years of the school, they won 5 state championships. So and it's not like it was that long ago. Now they get a little further away from those. Yep. But the expectation is where they should be, right? And so right now, they spent the last couple of years kind of in the standings looking up at Madison last year. So last year losing a really close game to Madison, 28-24. So it wasn't like they were dominating. Now the rematch in the region final was a little more lopsided final score, but I think kind of shows still that Westfield still has the talent to play with anybody in the state, right?
That schedule, though, it's a tough schedule. I mean, you start off with Patriot. Those teams are always pretty talented out there, right? These PW teams. So you're starting off with Patriot. Mount Vernon got hot last year, at the end of last year, right? They're up and coming. Lake Braddock, obviously, it's the region champs over there.
Same thing again, right? Lake Braddock, very explosive on offense, and held them to 9 points. I mean, that's a pretty impressive feat.
Now he's retaining a lot of that staff. He's retaining a lot of the staff, right? So there's that, and that's huge for him. You're a new coach, and you got this veteran staff that you're retaining. I know there's, I think he had Coach Thompson, quarterback coach, on offense. I don't think he's on staff anymore. So he's lost some offensive staff. I think he retained a lot of the defensive staff, from my understanding, anyways.
Well, I mean, I think that's smart. I mean, one, I think any of the coaches listening to the podcast right now know it is so hard to find coaches, and it is nearly impossible to find really quality coaches who will stick around.
Yeah.
But I mean, just the desire to coach high school football is getting less and less and less every year. for multiple reasons. I can speak to, when I remember playing in high school, almost every coach I had on that coached me was a member was at least worked at the school, which is not what you get anymore. And to be able to walk into an experienced staff, it really, I think, is an advantage to him.
No, yeah, definitely. Now, some of the issues he's going to have to overcome. He's going to have to overcome losing his quarterback, right?
Yeah.
A solid quarterback, played really well last year. So you're losing your quarterback, you're losing your top receiver.
Right.
Okay. That is tough. And then several, I mean, you look at those defensive scores that we just talked about, and he's losing several defensive linemen. That's tough to overcome.
Right. But he does have another senior class that he is going to be relying on. Kennedy Duda, he's a 5'10", 175-pound running back. He has a receiver DB combo and Connor Morin as 5'10", 165. He's got a quarterback wide receiver in Huda Johnson, a linebacker Troy Lucas, a DB Jay Rendison, and DB Elijah Caulfield, and all seniors.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about a top quality program is that, a lot of times your JV ends up being really good because those juniors are really good. They just can't beat the seniors out. And then it becomes their turn. And so, Westfield, again, 5 state championships in 16 years is a type of program where where reloading is not very difficult for them. And they don't have to play young guys. They can play old guys I'm willing to gamble. Most of these guys are 4-year players in the program, which is something that's invaluable.
Yeah, and once again, we talk about the youth feeder, like you said. Talk about Centreville Youth Club. They're getting solid players. They're getting a lot of players. Them, Centreville, Chantilly, they're getting a lot of kids from a good youth feeder program that teaches them how to block, how the fundamentals, how to tackle. And the proof is in the pudding, right? With Westfield the last 20 years. So,
and again, it's going to sound like we're just being positive about everybody, but bringing a quality hire like Coach Bossler, quality football program. I don't know how this can go wrong.
I'll say this. This is what I'm going to say. And I don't think they're going to be good. They're going to be good. We know they're going to be good. But I'm curious to see what kind of offense they're going to run.
Yeah, that's going to be
right. And because he ran that offense at Robinson. Will he run that at Westfield? Would it be a hybrid? It very well could be. That's going to be fun to watch to see what they do there.
Well, and you wonder too, will it be a hybrid because of the amount of talent they have there, right?
Yes,
they have the ability, and I'm not saying that Robinson didn't. Right. What I'm saying is what they have over at Westfield, maybe that'll incline him to be able to be a multiple offense, right? Mm-hmm. And that's your advantage, right? I mean, when you're trying to coordinate, when you're trying to game plan for somebody, and you're like, one, if they run the wing T well, you have to spend all week trying to prepare for it. But the problem is if they also run some kind of spread offense or kind of a more wide open offense, it can make things really difficult for you.
Yeah. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun to watch. Yeah. All right, moving on up like George and Wheezy, moving on up right now
to a deluxe apartment in the Concorde District.
That's right. Well, I mean, that's the Concorde. This is this is rich neighborhood here. This is a lot of riches, a lot of weapons, right? Yeah. I mean, they have. I mean, just countless amount of athletes and football players and tradition. All right, so we got Madison. All right, Madison.
So, oddly enough, Madison the 1 seed, but lost the Concorde to an undefeated South Lakes, which just to get on my soapbox for a minute, I do think it is rather ridiculous that you can go undefeated, beat the team, their only loss is to you, but yet you end up being the lower seed. I think we've talked before, and I'm sure at some point we'll talk about the things that are wrong with the current PowerPoint system. But I think that is ridiculous. I think if the team you lost to, and they have a better record, they should probably be the higher seed. But I digress. That is for another day.
I agree with you. And yeah, the PowerPoint system was probably not created for that scenario, right?
Probably not.
It wasn't created for that scenario. So Madison finishes number 2. Right, in their conference,
with their only loss to being to South Lakes, a 12 game, which I think kind of talked before. South Lakes was explosive on offense last year. They really were. They were really explosive on offense, and But again, championship level programs, that's kind of what they do, right? They're not afraid of the big moment, and I think Coach Counts over there, at that point they were state championship runner-ups back-to-back years.
It's such a solid program. Well coached, solid players. Coach Counts, like you just said, has done a tremendous job since he's taken over, at Madison. I was talking to my son earlier, talking about, they're kind of like the commitment to excellence right now, right? I'm a Raider fan. You talk about commitment to excellence. Right now Madison has it. That loss of freedom. It was a loss of freedom. Nothing to hang your head up about.
Right.
But that I'm looking at the schedule though. Whew.
Yeah.
That's a rogues gallery right there.
You open up with Stone Ridge, right?
Jeez.
Stone Ridge, one of the best teams in the state. They beat them last year. We happened to see Stonebridge on film. Was it last year we watched Stonebridge on film? Yeah. We saw Stonebridge on film, and holy smokes! They were pretty good. And for Madison to go in there and game one, right?
Yeah.
No real game film to kind of go off of.
At Stonebridge.
At Stonebridge, didn't really know what they have, and be able to go in there is big. And then to follow up that next week with beating Braddock 31-7, and obviously Braddock being really, really good last year.
Right.
But again, that goes to show, I think when you have that type of program that's been in championship games, those kids aren't scared of the big moment, and the coaches aren't scared of the big moment, right?
Yeah, that's right.
They've coached in big games. They've been there before. So playing a good team in the regular season is not, I wouldn't say not difficult, but it's something that those kids are well prepared for and well versed on, right?
Well, and what I appreciate with it is you and I talk about this how almost all the other sports in high school, right, at least in our area, makes the playoffs, right? The top two teams in the region, everybody makes the region playoffs. Everybody makes and not in football.
Right.
Not in football. And so what you see a lot of times in these sports, because they know they're going to be in the playoffs regardless, they do put a tough schedule, right? We're talking to some of the basketball coaches, some of the lacrosse coaches, and I've seen some of these guys with these tough schedules, and they're like, well, we got to get ready for the playoffs. We got to be ready to play the best teams. Okay. These guys did it when they're, with no playoff guaranteed.
Right.
And you got to appreciate that. For them to schedule Stonebridge, Braddock, South County.
Right.
They scheduled the two best. If we're going to call these guys the SEC, what's the other one? The Big Ten?
The Big Ten, yeah.
Right. The Patriots, the Big Ten. And they said, all right, we'll take on the two best players of the Big Ten.
Right.
So that's impressive stuff.
Right. They're not running and hiding from top competition in the area, right?
Right.
Coach Counts really thinks he's got some good kids coming back. He really he has kids like Jack Ambrose, 6'2", 220. So they even their skill guys look like they've got some size on them. So and they play a physical style of football. I think 2 years ago when we watched them play Fairfax, you could tell just a physical style of football. Just really impressive what they do over there.
Coach Counts, he told us, he said expects most of his players coming back on D. Most of his impact players coming back on D.
Yeah.
D, the strength of the team. That's scary. That was a heck of a defense.
Right.
You combine that, right? You bring back most of your core defense, and then you're bringing back your experienced quarterback.
Right.
That's a good combination.
Absolutely. Yeah. South Lakes was able to knock them off last year, but being able to keep Madison down for a bunch of years probably pretty difficult to do. And while they did lose there to South Lake last year, which kudos to South Lakes for beating them last year, they still are pretty much kind of champ, right? They're not the reigning champ, but they're right now they're the number one contender,
right?
And especially with them returning their team.
And it would be mistaken if we didn't mention who could be their best player, right? Most dynamic, at least, is Nicely. Nicely,
that was it. Nicely,
the running back, kind of a scat back receiver.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of coaches mention that's maybe the best player in the region.
Yeah,
that's impressive stuff. Think about this for a second. Think about returning quarterback, veteran quarterback, maybe the best running back, or skill player.
Well, he had 2,000 total yards last year.
Right. Yeah, you're combining that with the veteran quarterback with a returning your core defense.
Right.
I just talked myself into. How could you not? Madison's going really far, but I'm not Nostradamus to say that they're going far, right?
Right. Well, I mean, for them not to go far would be more shocking than not, right? I mean, if we're going to the sports book over at MGM and we're putting money down on high school sports, we're probably betting pretty heavy on Madison make the playoffs, probably Madison in the second round, right? I mean,
we probably are. That's probably a fair bet. All right, so Madison, solid, and here we go. We're going to finish up with the number one team in the Concorde.
In the Concorde,
we got to say it like that because obviously they weren't the number one team in region playoffs, but they were the number one team in the Concorde conference. It's South Lakes with Coach Hescock's squad. Go ahead.
Yeah, so South Lakes, really explosive last year on offense, but really senior heavy last year on offense. So, or just senior heavy across the board, right? I mean, this was a big year for them. I mean, if you look at their first four games, they scored more than 50 points. I'm sorry, Robinson and Osborne were 40-point games. But then 65, 51, 35, 49, 56. And then so again, going back to the Madison game, being special. But that being said, they didn't fold, right? You could argue, South Lakes, if they were a rising program, Madison had been there before, and they were able to hold on. They were able to hold on and get a victory against obviously a really quality opponent. They then closed the year with beating Centreville, again 45 in Centreville, and then a close game with Westfield. And again, you could argue, right, Westfield, Madison are kind of the two standard bearers of the conference. And again, credit to Coach Hescock for being able to hold on and keep his kids focused and kind of go through there, right? Because a lot of times when you haven't won a ton of games, or you're kind of back and forth, and you're kind of building a program, you get into those big games against those big powers, and you always worry that maybe the kids will start to fold, right? Just because they haven't been there before, not because you don't believe them, but first time underneath the bright lights, and I think at every sport, every level, right? We always see it all the time. We see teams all the time that are the up and comers. It took the Pistons a long time to beat the Celtics, right? Teams like the Bills got there 4 years in a row, and they just couldn't finish. Same thing there, but so really kind of tip the cap to South Lakes last year for what they did.
Oh, and then, so impressive. I mean, dream season. Right. Dream season, Washington Post, all that stuff. I mean, it was amazing. 30 seniors. And that also says something to what Coach Hescock is doing over there, right? Because, I mean, you got to retain, right? And you and I always talk about this. That's one of the toughest things to do. If you're, you're winning every year and kids, whatever, but teams that, aren't winning a conference title every year, it's hard to retain talent.
Right.
To retain all those seniors, 4-year guys, that's an amazing thing. Now, 10 starters on defense are gone. So their entire defense is gone.
Right. So we weren't able to watch any film from last year. So the question is, how much did you play the backups during those blowout wins, right? So perhaps they could be ready to go if they had emptied the bench early. Kind of got those guys in, right? That's where the thought process. So look at that defense, and then on offense, they had over 4,000 yards in total offense, which is really impressive. But you go back to who got all those yards. The top 6 guys were all seniors.
Yeah, oh yeah,
total yards. Again, great year. But having these kids ready to go is going to be the name of the game, right? I mean, are your young guys going to be able to step up early and kind of keep it going? Now, that being said, those kids were around for big games. So, now the thought process for them is, okay, no longer, maybe we're good, maybe we're not good, we'll see. Maybe they're like, no, we're supposed to be here, right? And that's probably what they're going to be going through there, right? You may have a set of kids who are like, we're supposed to be here, that we're no longer a bottom feeder. So now they come in with a little more confidence, which that means a lot, right? I mean, coming in with the mindset that you're going to be able to win.
Right. Now, we did have coaches tell us a couple of things. One, other coaches in the conference mentioned that they had a very strong JV and freshman program. So that's going to be needed now.
Right.
They're going to need that. The other thing that we look at is there were some coaches that had mentioned, last year, just how they were able to play in both kinds of games, right? Obviously, they wanted to, score a lot of points. They wanted to be kind of, the quarterback had a phenomenal season, right?
Yeah.
Throwing the ball, and that's kind of what they preferred to do. But when they had to, like you said, they beat Madison in a dogfight.
Right.
Right. They that was a Madison kind of game, and they beat Madison at that. And which is probably why they, going into that Yorktown game, they probably figured, hey, it's going to be Yorktown. They're going to try and kind of slow things down. It's going to be kind of an ugly game, and they almost pulled it off. And that was a solid Yorktown team too. So nothing to hang your head about there.
Well, and we'll talk about later with them, but going into that game, it's the old boxing analogy: styles make fights, right?
Yep.
You have explosive offense against a Yorktown team that style of play, right, is they want to slow it down, and also you have a head coach in Yorktown who's been through the wars, right? He's seen more football than most of us will ever see in our whole life. So,
right.
It's just one of those really tough matchups. And interestingly enough, kind of going back to what I said before, South Lake should have been the 1 seed.
Yeah,
they should have been the 1 seed.
That's a good point.
They would not have seen Yorktown in the first round. They would have seen. I'm not sure who the last seed was. I can't think of off the top of my head. But they should have been the 1 seed. And so but
they would have seen Langley in the first game.
In the first game, and so Langley had a good year, but again, styles make fights. Styles make fights. And
that is correct. They're going to be one of the interesting stories because and I get it, right? That coming off such a dream season, I'm sure coaches and players, they want to show, hey, it wasn't just those guys,
right?
We can do it too. And I know coaches, his kind of mission statement is going to be, I'm sure, something along the lines of, we're not just a one-hit wonder, right? And let's show everybody, right? Woodson in 2018, right? I remember coming back that next year. A lot of the players, whether they did it or they didn't, their mission was to prove to people that it wasn't just the 18 kids. We can do it too.
Right. It's kind of a prove it year for them. Kind of prove it year for them. But I think they've shown they can build a program, and obviously the feedback we got from other coaches about them says that their lower levels were really good. They thought their lower levels were really good. So it'll be interesting, and I think when we get to our final talk about what we think about the conference, I think that'll kind of share what I think, how I think things are going to play out for them at the end of the year.
Well, and that's kind of where we're at now. So kind of breaking it down and looking at it, Oakton, Centreville, Chantilly, Westfield, Madison, South Lakes. That's where it was last year. What are you thinking? Let's go this way. Let's do this first. Let's give me a dark horse. Give me a team that maybe some people don't. A team that could maybe make the playoffs in your mind. That maybe isn't the favorite and isn't that team, but someone that you think they could surprise people realistically. Like you'd be willing to make that bet at MGM on these guys, maybe that $5 bet.
So the tough thing, right, is unfortunately I haven't been watching a lot of film on them, but just based on historically programs, you assume that Centreville is gonna come back around, right? I mean that's just the assumption. The assumption is that Coach Shields, excellent coach, excellent program. They played a bunch of young kids this year, and my guess is they played a lot of young kids because they were like, okay, we're gonna. I don't want to say sacrifice a year, but they're gonna play the younger kids, get them ready to go, so that way the next year they are locked and loaded, ready to go, right? So I guess if I had to pick a team that I thought was going to be the one that might emerge, I think I'd probably go with Centreville.
Okay, I like that. I can't argue with that. That's a smart pick. I'm looking at it. I'm going to go ahead and this is one that, like you said, you're an MGM. I love the MGM analogy. Not that I would ever bet. My wife wouldn't let me. Looking at it, if you have a quarterback, right? What's the old saying, right? You need a quarterback, right? Yeah. The Chantilly kid is off and he was just at Maryland. I think I just saw that today. He was at some big camp today. People like him. He's impressive. He was going into his junior year. We saw him a bit last year. Chantilly's going to surprise people. We saw that running back. He looked pretty good, the young running back. I'm going to say Chantilly might. That's going to be my dark horse, right? They're going to surprise some people. Maybe they got a shot at the playoffs.
Okay. All right.
Now let's go. Who is winning? Now you're putting all your chips, right? Who's winning the conference? Who's winning?
I mean, I don't know how you vote against Madison. I don't know how you. I just, they've shown year in year out for the last 3 years that they are obviously one of the top teams in the state. Just the proof's in the pudding, right? I mean, they are Ric Flair, right? To be the man, you got to beat the man.
100%.
They're walking down the aisle to the good old 2001 Space Odyssey theme music, right? With the going on. So I don't know how you can pick against them. I think that, that's a safe. Again, if we're talking about MGM and I'm going all in, you got to go with the safe bet, right? And I think they are. I'm not saying they're going to win it. We talked about all these teams and all the positives that they have, but if you had to be like, okay, well, I got to bet my house on something, you got to go with probably the right now. And again, we talked before about how the Concorde has had a dominant team. Almost all the teams at one point have been dominant in the whole thing. At one point, all the teams have had at one point been it. But I think right now it looks like it's Madison's time for the time being, and I don't know how you go against that.
So I'm going to go with Westfield and Coach Vossler. I know there'll be a bit of a learning curve, right? New coach, but he's not a new coach in that way. He's a veteran coach. He's kind of learning the teams over there, but he had a year off. Probably kept an eye on things, right? Kind of watching things like Clubber Lang was watching Rocky, right? Just kind of just eyeing the fight and kind of just seeing things. Now he's ready to get in there. I think, I think with the veteran staff that he has over there, that's going to help kind of bridge some of the, other teams and kind of understand what teams are going to, try and do to them. And then bringing that offense that we think he might bring over there. We don't really know, but, bringing that offense that he ran over at Robinson and sprinkling that in, that might give some of those teams a headache over there enough.
Yeah, I'm going
to say Westfield is going to win the Concorde this year.
Okay. I think though with all those teams, as we've gone through talking about all of them, I think other than Madison, Westfield, it's going to be how quickly can they get their guys gelled, right? We starting back when we start with early with Oakton, right? Oakton's got talent down there, and if he can get those guys to gel early, I mean they'll be dangerous.
Yeah.
There'll be a bunch of Mavericks up there telling them, well, that's right, they are dangerous. But
gotta love the Top Gun pool.
That's the thing, right? Which team is going to get their young guys to gel early? Because at South Lakes, Oakton, obviously Chantilly has a little bit of turnover. Centreville, whichever guys come out and do that, and because they do have some football, all the schools have football tradition. I mean, who knows, right? They could be scary. It could be. The scary thing is, what if they all get them to gel? Now all of a sudden you've got a total dogfight over there, right? I mean, that's one of those ones where it's going to be a bunch of guys in a dark alley, fighting it out tooth and nail over there. So I think the Concorde could end up being really fun. It could end up being, well, at least fun to watch with. I mean, being a coach, I'm sure it's going to be a lot of Maylocks and Toms. Yeah, I think it has the ability to be a pretty interesting conference.
Well, there's a chance that, and it's a good chance, not even like anything crazy for me to say, that all 6 of these teams make the playoffs. That's a scenario that could easily happen. And
I agree.
Right, and then you have the two teams, the 2 top teams from Liberty. These 6 make it, and that could be your bracket. There's a scenario there, and I don't think that's a crazy scenario.
No, and I think coming from our side, we've seen that happen, right? We've seen 7 teams from the Patriot make it, and 1 team from the National, and that we're not denigrating the Liberty or the National, but we've seen that where you get one conference and everyone gets really good really fast.
Yeah,
and now all of a sudden, you have just kind of this really top heavy team where you take a team out of here or there. I mean, I think you could argue you move any of these teams to another conference, and now all of a sudden they could be the favorite to win that conference.
No, it's true. It's true. It's going to be fun to watch, like you said. I can't wait. I can't wait to watch some of these games.
Yeah.
Well, we're kind of winding down here, buddy.
We are.
We got next podcast though. We're going to kind of switch. We're going to hop across the seas, and we're going to talk about the National.
The National. I haven't heard anything about the National District all year. That's so weird. I mean, it's not a peep about any program over there.
It's a whole new world, buddy. It's a whole new world. This is the one. I can't wait. We might even make it 2 episodes.
2 episodes. We're gonna have a cliffhanger, like the Batman show. We're gonna have same bat time, same bat channel. Is that what we're doing?
To be continued. This is the one. This is like the different strokes when Sam got kidnapped. We're gonna have 2 episodes.
Sam got kidnapped?
I don't know. I know they did some to be continued ones. You like the different strokes pool, huh? Sam was their version of jumping the shark.
Yeah, he was.
But no, we're gonna talk about that, and it could be 2 episodes. I mean, who knows? We'll break it down before we get into the podcast, obviously, and if we think it's worth 2, then we'll do 2 different ones. The one thing that we will talk about, we'll stress this next pod, is we're going to put that we'll talk about, some of the topics that have been at hand, in the news, literally in the news, right? And then we'll put it away, and we won't talk about it again, because then we'll get into football.
Right, which is what we're here to do, right?
That's what we want to talk about, So
there are other websites where they do not want to talk about football; they want to talk about something else.
Right, let them do that under anonymous names and all that kind of stuff, and we'll stick to let people go on the underground and whatever weird places they go, and we'll stick to this and talk about football. So that'll be fun. Talk about the national next week.
Your old national district. Yeah, no, that'd be exciting.
And we'll keep plugging the. You want to plug the website again before we get out of here?
All right, ready. All right, so it's NovaHSSports.com. NovaHSSports.com.
All right.
So but when you hear this, our Concorde preview should be out. You guys be able to go there and read up all the coaches who sent us the questionnaires. We'll get something written up on you, because we want to make sure that you guys get your kids some coverage, at least. Get you in your program, because all you got, you coaches out there and you kids are working hard, and so we want to make sure that you guys get some shine on you.
That's it. That's exactly right. Well, thanks for sitting in the barbershop today. Appreciate Carl Frederick for coming on, and we got a new buddy to join us every once in a while, and Carl talk about some area football. Signing out of here for today, Coach Dash,
and I'm Coach Mesa.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.